All right, folks, I am going to do some episode recap type videos. In this one, we're going to talk about episode 1 or 2. And I'm going to talk primarily about my own experience. I will talk about some of the things that we saw other folks doing in 1 and 2. But I'm not going to be like critiquing, the other contestants. And the primary reason for that is because we were out there 24/7. We were filming all the time. And so what you see on TV is just a very small snippet of what actually happened out there. And so for myself, I know what my experience was. I don't know exactly what someone else's experience was. So I'm just going to comment on what we saw on the episode. I'm also going to talk a little bit in this video. I'm going to talk about my preparation for going on the show. We're going to talk a little bit about gaining weight because that seems to be a topic that people talk about, especially like places like Reddit and stuff. There's a big question about why people don't gain more weight. So we'll talk more about that. We're going to talk about bears and finding food and all that good stuff. So stick around. So before we get too far into this, I want to remind you yet again to subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Click that bell icon so you can get notified. I'm uploading a new video every week. We're going to be building things. We're going to be bushcrafting, talking about archery. And then later on this fall, we're going elk hunting. We're going to do all of our hunts that we normally do, whitetail, elk, hogs, all that stuff. And it's all going to be done with traditional gear that I make myself. So with that, let's get started. I've just got a list of things here that came to mind when I was watching the first episode. And the first thing to come to mind was something, and I'm glad they used it on the show, was I was talking about my metabolism. Like my body is it's just not made for holding weight. And so when I hit the ground, I knew that I needed to find food. I actually put on, before I went out there, I was able to put on 20 pounds, which put me at, I think I went in right at 180 pounds, which is a lot heavier than I've ever been before. And I've got all of that stuff on film, and I see that question all the time from people, why don't the contestants gain more weight, or why don't they gain weight? Well, some people, and I'm one of them, it's hard. I mean, I could eat a pint of ice cream every single night and not gain much.
All right, it's May 2nd. I'm weighing 159 pounds. Right now, we're 1 week into my attempted weight gain for Alone Season 8. A week ago, I was at 162. And then the next day I was at 155, now I'm at 159. So I've never been able to gain weight in my life, but I've been eating a lot of carbs, and we're gonna try that and see if we can put a little bit of weight on me. It remains to be seen, but we're gonna try. What's the date today?
May 9th.
May 9th, 164. What's the date?
16th.
May 16th, 162. Woo!
What do you have?
What is it, May 22nd?
May 23rd.
May 23rd, 166.
Oh.
It's officially the highest I've ever been in my life. May 30th. $166. June 13th, 168. That's better than I thought it was going to be. I was 165 last night. Must have been dehydrated.
Is that low?
I'm just moving around. June 20th, 172. So I stalled out at right about 173 or so for the last couple of weeks. Really haven't been pushing very hard, but we got about 3 weeks or so before we leave, and so I'm gonna try to pack on as much as I can. It's it's hard eating, like eating so much that you just are uncomfortable all the time. It really freaking sucks. But not as much as starving to get, I guess. Like, I really don't want to eat this right now. But Lily does. Yeah, you would eat it for me, wouldn't you?
Yeah, she wants it so bad she's drooling.
Aw. So tomorrow's launch day. Weighed in a couple days ago at 180 pounds, which is a hell of a lot heavier than I've ever been before. I feel fat.
So it's actually pretty hilarious to watch that now, because I look like a middle-aged balding dude, and I've never been fat like that before. So every time I watch that, and Liz, my wife, she laughs at me, and I can't help but to laugh at myself. There was a couple of times during that weight gain when I didn't try as hard and I just stalled out. Like I just wasn't gaining weight, even though I was probably still eating, 3,000 to 4,000 calories. I just wasn't gaining any weight. So you'll see, when I hit the ground, I immediately started trying to find food. And luckily enough, within the first couple of days, I was able to shoot a grouse, which was awesome. And I shot that just probably 100 yards out of camp. So at my campsite, there was a creek that flowed up. It was just a tiny little creek. You could step across the thing, but it was lined with black spruce. On the south side of that creek, it was a real steep face, kind of dark timber, real rank and nasty. And then on the on the north side of that creek, it was all just like lodgepole rolling hills, and I'm sure you'll see more of that, as the season goes on. And I was also luckily able to find a bunch of bolete mushrooms. So beyond that, I built that bushcraft fishing rod and reel, which worked amazing. If you watch that video or watch that segment of the season or the episode, you'll see that when I hooked that fish, I ended up, if you watch closely, the reel actually comes off of the rod, falls to the ground, and then I just throw the rod down and get the fish in by hand. And the reason that I did that is because I was reeling and I hadn't quite figured out the rod and reel and how to use it yet. And so when I was reeling that fish, the line got off of the spool and got wrapped around that spindle. And I couldn't reel with it like that. And so I just chunked the whole thing down and grabbed the fish and brought it in by hand. And luckily it worked out, because that fish, even though, when they show that season, or when they show all that footage, it looks like I'm just living it up. I've got plenty to eat. I had more to eat than everyone else, but I still, it wasn't like I had a buffet out there. I was very hungry by the time I caught that fish, and I was incredibly, incredibly thankful for it. But after that, I kind of got the rod and reel figured out a little bit more. And I've got a video coming out. By the time you see this, you may have already seen the video where I recreate that fishing rod and reel. In that video, you can see that when I get a fish on, like I figured out if you tilt that rod over so that the spool is up a little bit, it helps to hold that spool on there. And then also it was very important to guide the line, you know, hold the line between my thumb and forefinger to guide it onto the reel as I'm reeling. When they showed that electrical storm, that lightning storm on night one, like they showed just a very small segment of that, and that does not do that storm justice. I mean, it was savage. I was actually, so when they dropped me off on the shore, I did nothing with the shelter. I took off and just went exploring. I made a big loop around my place, found lots of grizzly sign, found a big like rock outcropping that I set up on and chilled out for a little bit and looked back across the lake. But mainly I was just looking for, you know, whatever. I was looking for what the land had to offer. I was looking for any kind of man-made objects that I might find, which I didn't really find a whole lot. That place is pretty pristine. But I was gone for hours, and actually I came back to my drop site and I was sitting on the beach looking out across the lake, and the sun had already set and it was getting dark, and I heard this noise. It was like an interstate highway that was way off in the distance, just kind of like this drone, this hum, real low, barely audible thing. I didn't know what it was, and it didn't strike me what that was until looking out across that lake, I saw this big dark mass just coming at me quickly. And the noise that I heard was actually just a massive wind, and it was driving rain, you know, sideways. We're talking like 30, 40 mile an hour wind, driving rain. I saw that big mass coming, and luckily, when I got back to camp, I had strung up my tarp, and we're talking I only strung that tarp up maybe an hour or so before that storm got there. I grabbed the camera and ran up and jumped underneath my tarp. But that storm came in so quickly, I mean, it was a total surprise. If it had come out, or if that storm had come in while I was out exploring, which it very well could have, you know, I would have been in for a miserable night. I would have got soaked and had to spend the night first of all, putting up my shelter during an electrical storm. But then while I was doing that, I would have got soaked. My sleeping bag probably would have got wet, and it would have been bad news. I missed out on all that just by sheer luck. But the electrical storm, I mean, it was popping lightning and thunder, and it was pretty amazing. So I have been in Idaho. I've lived in Idaho for I think 12 years. I've been all over this place, all over the backcountry. North Idaho is loaded with mountain lions, and I have never encountered a mountain lion in its natural environment, like not, you know, the only mountain lions I've ever seen up close have been in trees over dogs. And so, you know, the last thing you expect to see when you're out there, you know, sitting around a campfire is a mountain lion stalking up behind you. I had actually, like if you watch that, you'll see me wheel around because they had us all jumpy about grizzly bears because they'd been talking up grizzlies for, you know, weeks. And so when I heard that noise behind me, that's what I was wheeling expecting to see. Never expected to see a mountain lion. But the noise that I heard was actually, it wasn't a twig snapping like, I think they had a caption down there like twig snaps or something like that. It wasn't that. I heard a squirrel run up a tree and start chirring behind me. And so when I wheeled around, I didn't see anything. I just thought, well, a hawk came by or something like that and run that squirrel up. But I could feel something there. And so I turned around and that cat was right there, and he was less than 10 yards. You know, I was in such shock that it didn't occur to me that I should have just ran at him right then when he was so close. You know, I tried to slip back to the tent to get my bow like it said, and when I did, you know, he just turned around and left. I tried to rush him then, but he was already gone by the time I got down there. But, you know, in hindsight, if when he was so close, if I had rushed him he probably would have popped up a tree and I could have shot that cat and had, you know, a lot of meat right off the bat. But, you know, that's one of the things that it just didn't occur to me to do it at the time. But with that said, it was still an amazing once-in-a-lifetime experience. So there's never been a season of Alone before where large predators were a serious part of the landscape. But here at Chilko Lake, it's one of the highest grizzly densities in North America. I mean, that is no joke. There were bears everywhere, and we're seeing that already. I mean, people are running into bears left and right. Michelle had a pretty close encounter with one that was fishing right off of her shore. It looked like Matt had a pretty cool encounter with, if I remember correctly, it's a grizzly sow with cubs. Now grizzlies just on their own are not a huge deal. You know, I've run into bears, I ran into many bears while I was out there. But I saw a stat the other day, I want to say it was something like 70% of the maulings that involve grizzly has to do with a sow with cubs. That is, when it comes to bears, grizzlies, that is the one situation that you try your best to avoid, is bumping into a sow with cubs out there, because her first instinct is to protect those cubs, and that means neutralizing anything that she perceives as a threat. And if you're close by, you're that threat, and she will not hesitate to come and scratch you up. And so luckily, well, I don't want to spoil anything for later on, so I'll stop talking about that. But anyway, if you guys have any questions about anything that you see on the series, or you know, anything that I make or anything that I do, please feel free to ask. I might not be able to answer everything. I certainly won't be able to talk about everything, but I'll do my best to answer whatever questions you have. And with that, yeah, we'll see you next time. It's going to be interesting to see how this season rolls out and how they used all our footage and see the story that's made. But I have not seen any of these episodes. I'm watching them right along with everybody else. So, you know, it's going to be fun. We'll see you.